first time. We get sorry, this the way this thing is. So yeah, so I can't go. Oh man, my hair's sticking up. Ooh. There we go. Now I look like a halfway decent streamer. Let me see here. Yeah, no. Looking at the lights. Look at disco party. Okay, well, I guess no. Yeah, okay, cool. So, welcome to the stream. I'm Legion. You can go by Legion2234 or DJ. I don't care. Y'all can know my first name. You know, I'm not too worried about it. I usually do like reactions to cringe or black magic videos. You know the stuff that I like. I mean I don't know if y'all like, but I do. Okay, and you know I also have a whole bunch of videos on my saved list. I watch later, and they're so sporadic. There is no rhyme or reason to it. So, you know, it's going to be going through it. We are where I am, and I'm hoping to what's it called? Learn stuff and get information from y'all, your points of view on things, what you think. I mean, I just want to hear from y'all, you know. And in the process, watch some videos. I mean, dude, why not sit down, chill out, watch a video, speak your mind, and go about your day. I know it's a work week, and I know, dude, worst timing in the world for a stream is in the morning before y'all go to work. You know, I get it. Today I had off, so I was able to do it this early, which may have been a complete mistake on my part, but we're just gonna do it. Okay, I'm just gonna go through it, and we'll watch the video, and we'll go through everything. And if you hear meowing throughout the video, it's my cats. I have 6 cats, and I have become the cat lady, and I love my cats, and I have my dog, and I love my dog. My animals are, I don't know, they're great. I love them. They come see me when I come home. One's on my lap right now, Sadie. One comes to me. Here, let's see if I can get it. Come on, Sadie. Look, yeah. She's coming to say hi to me. She was the first. I was not a cat person. I was a straight dog person. When I was a child, I want to say probably not even a child. I'm 43. Yes, yeah, I can say child. When I was like 12, 13, my friend had a cat. Very nice cat. Let you pet it. You know, came up and said hi. Did its cat thing. And one day I'm petting it, and it just goes ballistic. It just tears my hand up. I mean, just claws me to oblivion. And let's see, you get that. Claws me to oblivion, and I'm bleeding, cut up, everything. And from that day forth, I did not like cats. I was like, nope. Dogs only. They're small. They're big. You get the right kind, they love on you. And that's all I knew. And I was raised with small dogs. I was raised with poodles, also pugs and chihuahuas. And I liked them. They were nice. Couldn't bitch. And then we got Bandit. And he's a big dog. I love him. I got him from a friend in Gerald. I used to be a police officer in Gerald, and somebody left 2 dogs at a house. One was pregnant, one wasn't. one was in a cage, one wasn't. I mean, they left them at the house. They ditched the house and left them there. I believe the cage was on the front door, and the other dog was in the back. And no food, no nothing. So we got the call. We went out there. Luckily, my partner had a friend that would take in the 2 stray dogs, feed them, get them back up, and then they were going to do whatever they were going to do with them, either give them away or raise them, that was it. And I made this sly comment, man, it would be cool to get a dog so I could have a police dog, get a puppy, have a police dog. We all laughed, and then that was it, and went about our business. About what? I'm going to turn this down, I get a cough. Sorry, I didn't want to blow your eardrums out. About 4 weeks later, not about 3 weeks, I get a call. Hey man, come pick out your dog. And I was like, what the hell? Went there, and I picked out this white fur ball. Little white fur ball. And then they started feeding it and all that, and then something happened, and they had to leave. And they told me, "Kate, come get your dog." And I had to run over there and get them before they left. And my wife raised them and trained them and everything, and then fell in love with him. And then, yeah, he became a family dog. No police dog, just a family dog. Well, then, we also got a cat, Tipsy, from a friend of ours. My wife fell in love with it. Tipsy ended up passing away, and my wife was like, "Hey, can we get another cat?" And I was like, "Yeah." And we ended up getting 2, Lego and Sadie. Lego ended up getting attached to my daughter, and Sadie ended up getting attached to Jen. Well, then, time goes by, I started to fall in love with Sadie, and then I just loved her. It was great. She never bit me. She never clawed me. I'd snuggle with her. She'd be okay with it. So, time went on. My daughter took Lego, and she went to live with her boyfriend/fiance now. And then we went to a job. We were doing a security job. We found 4 little kittens. I'm talking probably within, 2-3 weeks of birth. And a car tried to run them over. I directly went at them. And that's how I saw them, because I saw this car jerk. And I looked, and I saw the little cats in the ground from the headlights. And I ran over there. Luckily, he didn't hit them. And I got 2 of them. And then I did another walk around, and another 2 was found. And then we took them. And now they're here with us, and I love them to death. And they're named after police things, constable, sheriff, chief, and trooper. And I wouldn't have life any other way without them. I don't. Fuck that shit. I want my cats, and I want my dog. I've grown very attached to them. So, I digress. Let's actually do what we came here to do. And that is to watch a show from my playlist. So, let's see what we can get here. Alright, so this is Mad God, a stop motion ride through hell. I don't know why. I like the fact of stop motion. I love stop motion. I think that shit's awesome. And taking it right through hell, shit, why not, right? We all talk about it, why don't we do it? So, here we go.
The movie we're talking about today is a stop-motion ride through hell, created by a man who spent 3 billion years at the center of the earth with his cat. This is one hell of a drug, and according to a Vice interview, it actually happened.
I took way too much.
Meet Phil Tippett, the man behind many of Star Wars' most famous and influential creatures and machines.
I guess I'll have to destroy that little guy.
Like the Cantina aliens, the Tauntaun, the AT-ATs, some weirdos call them AT-ATs.
However, what if you channeled the Addict Walker?
You can make ads walk. You can make ads legs cross some obstacles. Add as a cop.
are not called AT-ATs. Can we just all call them walkers?
Walkers.
He created the Rancor and even Jabba the Hutt. He made them by hand and then puppeteered them for the films.
We rigged the Rancor puppet so that I could put my hand up his.
He worked on more legendary films such as Starship Troopers, RoboCop, and Jurassic Park.
Alright, truth be told, Starship Troopers was a badass movie. I don't care what any of you say. And RoboCop. I'm a cop. RoboCop. Makes sense. Just saying.
He even created the dragons for a personal childhood favorite film of mine, named Dragonheart.
Dragonheart was awesome. Did y'all see? Dude, if you haven't saw that, Sean Connery, Dennis Quaid. Oh, dude. I loved that movie when I was younger. Oh, I watched the shit out of that. That was awesome.
I'm not sure how well that movie has aged. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but when I was a kid, I really liked it. He was also the visual effects supervisor on the Twilight films. I need to mention this. While doing research for this video, I came across a picture of young Phil Tippett, and this dude basically just Philip Seymour Hoffman. They have the same face, okay? These guys, they're doppelgangers of one another. Look at these two men side by side and tell me that they aren't brothers. I mean, come on, one of them had to have changed their last name. It's like me and Jeremy Davies. Phil Tippett suffered from anxiety and depression his whole life and managed to live with it by creating things. He was so obsessive with his personal projects that his parents grew concerned with his well-being and even looked into psychologists that might be able to help him. Little did they know that their son would live on to be one of the most celebrated stop-motion filmmakers to ever live. Enter the masterpiece, Mad God, an allegory for sin in all its forms, and my favorite stop-motion film of all time. This is Phil Tippett's pride and joy, his magnum opus. It's the culmination of many, many, many years of work.
That I've been kind of making for like the last 30 years.
It was crowdfunded from Kickstarter, and with the help from a relatively small team, Tippett went all in on this project. He started making Mad God in the late 80s. After starting it, however, he'd leave it on the back burner for many years before eventually returning to it with a small team.
I produced, maybe 5 or 6 minutes of footage all shot on 35mm film. And when the digital age hit, I shelved the project. And there the film set gathering dust for the better part of 20 years.
Tippett's work was inspired by Willis H. O'Brien's King Kong, Nathan H. Geron's The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and the abstract painter Hieronymus Bosch. I'm sure there are many others, but those are just some of the few that he mentioned during an interview.
Dude, I used to watch the old Sinbad movies with my dad. The actual ones like that with the claymation and all that. Dude, I mean, back then, movies were different. I mean, I don't know. Like now with the digital age, yeah, it looks great. I mean, we get these awesome visuals. They just, the visuals are like eye-candy. It's like, oh my God, look at the colors. Look at what they're doing, the CGI, the green screen, everything. It looks awesome. But you look at the movies made in the 80s and 90s, before that were made on film, and you see that film grain, and you hear the sounds, I mean, the deep, cool sounds. I would rather watch movies with film grain than these digital movies sometimes. I really would. I wish they would, like, I don't know, put a filter on it and make it look film grainy, like it was shot on a 35mm, and then put it up. That would be badass, dude. I'd watch all movies all over again. I wouldn't care. I'd spend hours doing it because that, to me, looks like a movie. That 35mm look, the grainy look, that's a movie.
Those 1950s horror sci-fi films.
Tippett likens Mad God to a novel, because in a novel, the writer acts as a sort of guide, and the reader fills in the blanks with their mind. Tippett wanted Mad God's meaning to be open to interpretation, but at the same time he said that, to him, the film was representative of the Western world's privilege, being attained through the slaughtering and the suffering of other people.
It probably can be best characterized by the shame that I feel for our privilege in this country that was built on the backs of destroying a lot of other people. and not taking responsibility for it.
While this film is purposely cryptic, there's also a misanthropic message and tone present throughout the entirety of Mad God.
Mad God will defy any rating. It's intended to be a preposterous, ribald, dark, apocalyptic, blasphemous, Milton-esque descent into the bowels of the unconscious. It's not for the squeamish.
I'm going to be mentioning a lot of stuff that came to my mind while watching this movie. It might not have been what Tippett intended, but that's what comes with interpretation, you know? Depending on the viewer, if you watch a weird movie like this, you might take certain things away that other people didn't take away, whatever. I welcome all disagreements or clarifications in the comment section. I just love weird symbolic movies like this, so let's begin. Of course, if you haven't seen Mad God yet, then I highly encourage you to go out and watch it before watching this video. I'm going to be spoiling a bunch of it. We're immediately presented with a tower behind a setting sun. There's triumphant horns playing in the background as groups of men haul crates of some kind up the sides of this tower. This is the Tower of Babylon. In the Bible, the Tower of Babylon was erected by the Babylonians to create a mighty tower with a top so high that it would pierce the heavens.
I don't know if you guys know this or remember this, but the iPhones used to have a game. I think it was called the Tower of Babel, and your whole goal was to kill the people trying to build it as a god. You were like a god. So you could cause like massive windstorms and it'd blow them all off, or you could storms and lightning and fire and all this other shit. And I liked it. I don't know what happened to it, but hey, yo, it's gone. I would love to play it again. I mean, if somebody could like come up with the old iPhone games or old Android games, you know, or even the old flip phone games, dude. Do you remember those old flip phone games? Man, some of them were the best, dude. I think it was the iPhone, or no, not the iPhone. It was the iPod Touch with the circle, and they had this game where you could. It was like Pong, but you're destroying bricks, and you'd have to move it all. Dude, that shit was awesome. I don't know why they got rid of it. They should have just like built onto it. You know what I'm saying?
There appears to be a figure of some sort at the very top that is immediately struck by lightning. Or perhaps this is the person that called the storm in the first place and has become victim of his own creation. And this then destroys everyone else below him. The storm slowly envelops the tower, which could possibly mean that the people at the very top who have a god complex will most certainly cause the downfall of everybody below him. And man's progress will always be hindered by those at the very top. This scene more likely represents the wrath of God, and how it was brought about by man and his relentless desire to attain godhood. The next scene introduces some religious symbolism. We're shown a piece of parchment that reads, "If you disobey me and remain hostile to me, I will act against you in wrathful hostility. I, for my part, will discipline you sevenfold for your sins. You shall eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters. I will destroy your cult places and cut down your incense stands. And I will heap your carcasses upon your lifeless idols. I will spurn you. I will lay your cities in ruin and make your sanctuaries desolate, and I will not savor your pleasing odors. I will make the land desolate, so that your enemies who settle it shall be appalled by it. And you I will scatter among the nations, and I will unsheath the sword against you. Your land shall become a desolation, and your cities a ruin." This text is a reimagining or a rewrite of a passage from the Bible, more specifically Leviticus 26:27-33, which warns people of the consequences they will face if they disobey God. I believe Tippett wanted to shine a light on the powerful and despicable people who believe God has chosen them, the people that believe that through their worship have become gods themselves, and thus leverage their dominance and power over others in the most deplorable ways imaginable.
Look at it. Look at it right fucking
We're then shown an eye moving erratically around its socket, a window to the soul, and our lenses through which we view the world. Could this be Tippett's eye, telling us that this is his interpretation of human history? Or is it meant to be more of a reflection of ourselves, humanity in general? Tippett preparing us to see the ugliest side of the human condition. Either way, we move on to be introduced to Tippett's dreary and post-apocalyptic industrial nightmare. There's a giant structure with spotlights and cannons mounted on its top. A siren blares fires and the cannons shoot at the sky. This is a world afflicted by warfare. Our protagonist, named Assassin on IMDb, drops from the sky in a pod. He's a man on a mission wearing a sort of gas mask. His pod survives the cannon fire. He then descends deep, deep down into a seemingly endless abyss. He passes a series of large pipes. He descends through what almost appears to be webbing or branches, or what could even be a series of synapses or neurons in a brain. He descends past bones and fossils. He drops past a room full of statues once carved by ancient civilizations, getting a good look at what he will inevitably become, a part of history's ever-growing collection of dead. What are we, if nothing more than what we leave behind? He ends up passing a gigantic skull of an alien or bug. He lands in a giant area filled with what appear to be massive cocoons or eggs of some kind waiting to be hatched. They're so large compared to the assassin that it almost looks like he's descending into a city. His pod finally reaches the floor. He exits the pod and we get a new perspective of our protagonist. This time, he is the size of a giant. We watch his huge boots from the perspective of some bug-sized gnomes. The assassin squashes them mid-argument without ever realizing he did so. He then peers at a map to help aid him towards his destination, never realizing that he ended some lives just a moment ago. I think this part illustrates very well how we, who often think of ourselves as innocent and benign, will unwittingly cause harm to others, usually through the way we spend our money, and sometimes through inaction and apathy. The assassin stares through some binoculars at a building in the distance. There are some people in each window partaking in different activities. One is watching porn, one is playing piano, and one is committing homicide. Each person is oblivious to the other two, despite how loud they might be. This shows us quite literally that most people only care about what's directly in front of them. If it doesn't directly impact me, then why should I care? The next scene is mostly just a big fish eats little fish scenario. The assassin watches as a crawling guy eats a smaller creature, and then a larger creature wielding a cleaver eats the crawling guy. Of course, there are some parallels to the natural world in this scene, you know, the circle of life, etc. But I think what this scene is actually trying to demonstrate is man's bastardization of the circle of life. We've, in a sense, created our own that's not only about survival, but a desperation to survive under the weight of a man-made framework built with the sole purpose of crushing those at the bottom so that those at the top may prosper. I love the design of the largest creature. It has huge human teeth, and it's naked aside from some necklaces. Very fashionable. Its roar is practically identical to the roar of the Tauntaun from Star Wars. It might very well be the same sound. It has bulging bloodshot eyes and big, massive, droopy milkers. Hell yeah, dude. The assassin continues toward his destination until he finds a room full of lab animals. We see a doll covered in filth touching her privates and staring at the assassin. This could be symbolism for women who are left with little choice other than to use their bodies to survive, which will ultimately entrench them further into a life of misery. We see a monkey strapped to a table as it calls out for help before the door closes, sealing it to its fate. The assassin bypasses all of this without a second thought. After all, this sort of thing is commonplace, and helping them wouldn't change anything, right? So why bother? Which is very similar to the fact that most of us know that cruel animal testing and human trafficking is happening, but most of us do little to try and stop them. We're just one person after all. What could we possibly do? Best to stick to our own personal schedules and try to reduce our own suffering as much as possible.
You know, it's amazing. It is. That whole statement, the way he looks at this and the way he thinks this is showing, hits hard because it's the fucking truth. It is. It is. I don't know, but it is. It is the fucking truth. We all know that shit's happening. We all know people are trafficking kids, animals, other people, money, toys, drugs, everything. We know it. Can we do something about it? I mean, yeah, we could protest. We could take to the streets and we could show up our cool little poster boards and do a whole bunch of GoFundMes and, you know, riot and peacefully and unpeacefully and everything, but no. I don't think we would ever be able to stop it until we eradicated everyone and showed that this is what happens when you do this. But see, I think that we are, as a society and as a collective are afraid to do that. I've realized in the past years that we are so afraid to hurt other people's feelings that we put our own down and we push our own feelings away because that's what we're told to do. Treat others how you want to be treated. But when you do that, they usually don't treat you the way you want to be treated. And this is what happens. We just turn a blind eye to things. He said it so truthfully. I mean, that hit hard. That's going to resonate with me for, God, years. It is, because that, man, I'm sorry. Just had to say something about that.
No matter how trivial that suffering may be, our personal comfort trumps everything. In the next scene, the assassin is presented with a row of giants, strapped to electric chairs, getting their strange bulbous heads zapped. The fleshy sacs that make up their heads are probably a result of this constant stream of electricity. What's keeping them alive? I have no idea. But something is. Could it be the electricity that's keeping them alive? Possibly. It's more likely this electricity is making them shit non-stop. There are holes under their chairs where a constant stream of liquid shit is expelled. Where does the shit go? Directly into this large techno-organic thing's mouth. The assassin takes an elevator down into what appears to be the bowels of hell. To me, this part represents the discrepancies of power in the world of man. Some poor bastards might be forced to metaphorically eat the shit of a more powerful man. But what they don't know is that this powerful man has no choice but to eat the shit of a more powerful man. He's dangling on puppet strings just the same as you. Of course, in reality, this is a little bit more complex. In this movie, these people have no choice but to, eat the shit of the people above them. But in reality, it's not that cut and dry. Below the cascading organs and...
But it is. In reality, it is that fucking cut and dry. Everybody says shit rolls downhill, man. Every job I've ever worked, I've always heard that. From a stalker to a driver to even a police officer. I mean, it all rolls downhill. It does. It's crazy. That is so cut and dry. I don't know what he's saying, but to me it is. If you know that, then you know what to expect when shit happens. You're gonna get it, dude. I mean, no matter where you are in any part of your life, shit rolls downhill. Period ended.
Meat lies a factory, endlessly pumping out workers that each take a faintly human form. They all look nearly identical and form long lines. They march single file to the opening of an oven that kills and consumes them as fuel. Others are used for labor, each of them expendable and easily replaced. Others die in work-related accidents, but it doesn't matter because those that die will be easily replaced to pick up where they left off. No harm is done to the machine. This next sequence shows us the inner workings of this machine in great detail. We see the transportation of floating blocks and insect larvae. We're shown fields of dead workers' bodies, giant structures with flames shooting from their tops, a baby coos in an intercom. Its noises can be heard throughout the factory. It's almost like it's meant to be giving orders or communicating with the workers in some way. Some workers even stop to stare at a series of hanging TV monitors that supposedly show different parts of this baby's face. Why a baby, though? I think it's meant to illustrate nepotism, how a lot of people are just born into positions of power, and how these people are coddled their entire lives.
Wow. Dude. Born into power. Just think about that. That is, if that's what that represents, that is so fucking head on, dude. Oh my God. Head of the nail. Man. This, I'm gonna have to find this movie. We're gonna have to watch this. We're gonna have to watch this movie because I know it's spoiling it, and I know this is one guy's rendition of what he thinks it's all about, but still, he's hitting it on. If any of this is what the creator tried to convey to us, I mean, to just even a little spot, if that's true, God, This guy's genius. I mean, he's hitting it, dude. It's making sense. People need to watch this, and seriously, I mean, even kids need to watch this because this shows them what the world is. Just first 13 minutes of it. Well, I don't know. Okay, I take that back because it's probably, I don't know how long the movie is, but from what he's showing us, I mean, damn, I think this should be shown in school so people get the idea of how life is. Instead of this, thought that they have that, oh, well, if I work hard, I'll live good and I'll have everything I want. I guess if you're born in the right place, if you have the right connection, yeah, sure. You could make a difference. You could live good. You could have everything you want. But, that's a fucking gamble in itself. It is. It's fucking, dude. I'm gonna find this and we're gonna watch this.
Never experiencing any hardships. And these wealthy adult babies many times end up in control of many other less fortunate people. As you can clearly see, social stratification is a big theme in this movie. Throughout this movie, I think you could draw several parallels between the Holocaust and this movie, but I'm not going to be doing that in this review. I just want to point out the correlation between blue-collar workers in the real world and the many workers in this movie that suffer and die so that the few can live comfortable lives. I also think it's very telling how the shit from the giants up top ends up creating the workers that help feed the machine that creates the shit. The assassin makes his way through this factory until he's faced with a single worker. They stare at each other for a moment until an overseer finds the worker slacking and stomps them to death. The assassin watches this happen before descending into a trap door. Oh yeah, the overseers are super gross, deformed monsters, so the next time your manager is mean to you, just imagine them as one of these things. It might make you feel better. They also kind of look like deformed versions of the monster we saw earlier. The one with the boobs and teeth. It's kind of weird describing something like that. The thing with the boobs and teeth. This could be telling us that the overseers are suffering just as much as the workers, and that maybe their fates are worse, since the workers can at least experience the sweet release of death. The assassin then finds himself in a dark area full of briefcases. This entire time he had been carrying a briefcase of his own. This mountain of briefcases are from other assassins that made this same trip down here. He opens his briefcase and inside sits a few sticks of dynamite. His mission becomes clear. He was sent here to destroy the machine. He turns the dial on the countdown timer that's attached to the dynamite, and then he's pulled away by a monster. When the countdown reaches 1 second, it stops and reverts back to 2 seconds, then ticks to 1, and then back to 2, repeating endlessly. Was the bomb fake all along? Did every assassin suffer the same fate? This scene tells us that their mission was always futile. They were never sent to destroy the machine. The assassins were brought here for another purpose. What we just discussed feels very much like part 1 of this movie, because next we see some curtains open. We're shown that the assassin is on an operating table behind a screen. There's a crowd of people watching this operation for entertainment. The crowd chuckles with enjoyment as they watch. Human beings will often find enjoyment in the suffering of others, as long as they can justify this suffering. The person suffering must have earned that suffering, or else it makes us feel bad, Don't hurt him if he doesn't deserve it, but if he deserves it, time to get my popcorn out.
That's it, dude, right there. This guy's hitting it, man. I swear. I don't know about you guys, but dude, sit back and just think. Stop for a second and think. Close your eyes, do whatever, go outside, have a cup of coffee, have a cigarette, lay down, take a shit, just take a second to yourself. And think about that. Honestly, that makes so much fucking sense that we would sit there and watch somebody get their just desserts if they deserved it. But if they don't, and we have thought that they don't deserve it, then we don't like it. But if we have come to the conclusion that, yes, this guy has done bad, this woman has done bad, this child has done bad, then they deserve what comes to them. But if they didn't, then they don't. So we have come to the thought process that if they do, we enjoy watching them suffer. If they don't, we don't like watching it. It just hits. Man, this thing, I don't know, dude. I'm telling you. This thing is just effing crazy. I am so happy I saw this because this is just opening my eyes to a lot.
Sometimes people will find the suffering of others self-affirming, with thoughts like, I would never end up in their position. After all, they deserve it, not me. People find a sort of sick satisfaction in the dehumanization of those they believe deserve their punishment. This part could also represent that people will often overlook the suffering that was necessary to create the art that they enjoy, because they enjoy it. My enjoyment comes first, alright? I don't care about you. I don't care. We're then presented with a series of cells, all containing an assassin's body on an operating table. We zoom in on one in particular. This is the assassin that we've been following up to this point, but doesn't really matter. He's just one of many, after all. He's still breathing, captive in his flesh, watching the clock as the second hand seems to slow to a crawl. Time does seem to slow when we're experiencing our moments of maximum suffering. There's this insidious bouncing sound that accompanies the second hand's movements of the clock. It then increases dramatically as time fast forwards, and the nurses and surgeon enter the room. At this moment, the sound of time moving forward mimics a rapid heartbeat due to extreme anxiety and panic, our assassin's heartbeat. The surgeon cuts into the assassin. All we see of him that isn't covered in bandages is his bloodshot eye moving around rapidly. In an almost comically drastic move, the surgeon rips open the assassin's chest and plunges his arm violently into his open chest cavity. This guy's chest is straight out of Harry Potter because goddamn, is it deep? The surgeon reaches deep down in there, dude. I don't know how he's going so deep, but blood sprays everywhere as he does this. Inside the assassin, the surgeon finds a litany of random things, like jewelry and literature. What exactly this means, I'm not sure. It could mean that these are typical possessions that people acquire over the course of their lifetimes before they die, and in the end, all this stuff that we thought was valuable ends up being meaningless trash. Eventually, the surgeon finds what he's looking for in the assassin's strangely deep chest cavity, a sort of squealing baby alien slug. The nurse and surgeon are played by real people instead of stop-motion characters in this movie, which strangely adds this feeling of authenticity instead of pulling you out of the experience. The nurse carries this strange alien slug away. The assassin is somehow still alive. A brain operation takes place. A camera enters a newly opened hole in his skull. It travels deep into his head. I love this strange, endless depth that exists in this movie, whether it be a chest cavity, or someone's skull, or deep down into the earth. When you go inside something in this movie, you can go for a while. Wait a minute. Thank God there wasn't a sex scene. Something like this might bother me in a different movie, but in this movie it works very well. In fact, I think it strengthens the experience. It gives it this sense of intrusiveness that ties in perfectly with the movie's themes. This movie is meant to make you uncomfortable, not only with its imagery, but with what it symbolizes. We're then introduced to the alchemist, who is also played by a real person. He's peering down at an assortment of soldiers carrying out different tasks. Some are digging, others are breaking down walls. There's one man dressed in an SS uniform performing a sea heil in front of a statue of what appears to be Baphomet. What's going on? What is happening? There are other men using a battering ram in an attempt to enter someplace. There are two random guys wearing suits, and they're sodomizing in the center of all of this. Oh, wow, okay. And then all of these people start yelling in unison. There's even one man in the bunch wearing a diver's helmet. I think there are some pretty obvious parallels here to, grunts during wartime and all the activities that they get up to. All of the activities. We return to the alchemist. He appears to be a leader of some kind. He's a man who grunts a lot and...
I'm thinking the two business people that are sodomizing themselves during the war would probably represent all the people that make money off of war and the death of the people that go out and risk their lives to save us or to get whatever the goal is. Because they always say, you want to make money, make war. Well, they're so happy, they're literally fucking each other. I mean, it just, nothing but pleasure for them because they're making money. You know, that's how I take it. I mean, I could be completely wrong. You know, I don't think it's the sex or violence in the war. I think that's the corporate side of war. That's what I think that is. And I'm sorry if you hear this, the trash men are here and they're taking the trash, so that's my bad. I'll turn down my mic.
And desperately needs nail clippers. I mean, even if you don't like cutting your nails, how could you let them get that long? It doesn't make a lot of sense, you know? Like, they prohibit you from doing some basic shit. How does he wipe his ass? He peers under a table at three tiny hags who are all sewing something together. I instantly thought of the Moire, or the Moire, or the Moirai, I don't know. Most of you, myself included, probably recognize them from Disney's Hercules. They're the three hags or witches of fate from ancient Greek mythology. There's Clotho the Spinner, Lachesis the Elotter, and Atropos the Inevitable. Each plays a significant part in weaving destiny. What part do they play in Mad God, however? Maps. They make maps out of flesh. They sew skin together, and it makes a map for the assassins, and they use that map to get to where they're trying to go. They give this map to the alchemist, who looks at it through a magnifying glass. He follows a white dotted line on the map until it lands on a tower. It seems to be the same tower from the beginning of the movie, the Tower of Babylon. So it would seem this alchemist is trying to achieve some sort of godhood, or is trying to commune with the gods for some reason. I believe he's using this map as a way to, like, force fate's hand. In the next scene, we find him walking among a battalion of would-be assassins. This is where our protagonist from part 1 came from. The alchemist personally sends the pods down with the assassins inside. Strangely, the pod enters some liquid. I'm not sure what's going on here. The alchemist then enters a sort of dingy and dim control room, where he uses a radar to watch the pods descend. He then sends Morse code to some other party. He's most likely informing someone else that the pod is coming, and that this is finally the assassin that will allow him to ascend into godhood, or, you know, allow someone to ascend into godhood. I don't know. The story here is obviously very obtuse, so forgive me if I get things wrong. You know, it's just bound to happen. We then follow a second assassin. This assassin drops someplace else. A city of ruins that looks like it was once underwater. We find out that the map the original assassin was using was once weaved by the Moirai. This assassin carries a flesh map and a briefcase, just like the previous assassin. After observing a scene straight out of War of the Worlds, the assassin takes the motorcycle and rides through the city, observing all sorts of strange things, like these four people with animal heads covered in blood. I'm unsure what this means. It could have some, like, Egyptian god symbolism, maybe like a minotaur thing. It probably means something, but I don't know. Let me know what it means in the comments, please. It could just be like some cool metal shit that Phil Tippett wanted to put in because, you know, pretty neat looking and weird. The assassin rides until his bike runs out of juice. He finds a car and drives through mountains of corpses. Pterodactyls are flying around for some reason. Yeah, so there's definitely parts in this movie where Phil Tippett put things in just because it's cool to put it in, which I think is completely valid as long as it doesn't, like, take away from the movie at all. This movie is already very strange. Putting some more strange stuff in it doesn't really ruin anything. The assassin continues driving until he finds himself in a war zone. Tanks are firing at each other in the distance. There's explosions everywhere. Bullets and dirt fly through the air in every direction. Thankfully, the assassin's car is just tiny enough that he's able to drive through safely. Eventually, the assassin drives past a wall that has some words written on it in white paint. It says, "Joel is a retard."
What? He was a retard.
I'm pretty sure it says retard, not retard. I'm assuming this is an in-universe dig at the Book of Joel from the Bible. Forgive me if I get anything wrong in this next section. I'm not super well versed when it comes to the Bible, but yeah, this is just some stuff that I found while doing some research. The Book of Joel mainly centers around the Day of the Lord, a day in which man, more specifically those that are God's enemies, will fall victim to his wrath and judgment. This period describes events such as the plague of locusts and the invasions of armies. And we already know that the wrath of God is a pretty big theme in this movie. We're presented with Armageddon taking place in the form of various natural and man-made disasters. And then the assassin drives down this man-made spiraling pit. We cut to the nurse from earlier with the alien baby slug still in hand. She approaches a huge door, which opens to reveal a towering, dark, witch doctor-looking entity with long black fingers. This thing is kind of like a mixture between a plague doctor and a witch doctor. It's a super cool design. I love it. It's got like a massive hat with, like, you know, the typical beak mask thing. I don't know. It's a super cool design. I'm a big fan. It's like got little dangly strings with bones hanging off them. I don't know. It's like something you see out of Diablo or something. It takes the slug baby into its arms and walks away. It then carries the baby through a labyrinth of giant sliding bricks until it enters a room full of gigantic statues, one of which is a huge pig cook. That's kind of weird. It walks further until it reaches a room full of slick, wet mounds of organic material that are everywhere. There's these huge, bold guardians that watch as the witch doctor enters a castle. The baby slug cries the entire way. The witch doctor passes a microscopic organism that slithers behind a glass panel. But this one is gigantic, which is a bit of an oxymoron, right? There are many cases throughout this movie that illustrate that size is relative, right? There was the thing with the gnomes in the beginning, and now there's this, and I'm sure there's many others. I think this is meant to illustrate that in the grand scheme of things,
the size of a thing
is,
not very important.
A galaxy is similar to a human body, both made up of numerous smaller things, and those smaller things are made up of even smaller things. The smaller you go, the bigger the things that were once small appear. Kill me, but I can't help but think of Ant-Man. That new Ant-Man movie? It was very bad, but it's kind of cool watching him get small. And then imagining the world where he exists in the small world.
That makes a lot of sense, yo. What was once big is now small, or what was once small is now big. You could take that as like your thoughts or things that have happened. Getting thick skin. Somebody said something and it was the biggest thing that ever was said to you. It hurt so bad. And now, 2 months later, somebody says something that hurts even worse, and that one thing doesn't hurt anymore, and it's small, minute little scar. Or, something happened to you in your life. I used to always have a saying, it may be a walk in the park for you, but it's the biggest thing in the world for me. So, that totally makes sense. Size does have, relativity to this. It is what was once big is now small, and then, of course, what was now once small is now big. Dude, this movie is all about that. It is hit right on the damn head.
This next sequence, I think, is a critique on man's radical control over less intelligent creatures, how we use them and often harm them for our benefit. A deformed man that kind of reminds me of Klungo from Banjo-Kazooie approaches two large beasts that are fighting. He flicks a switch so that the headgear they're wearing is electrocuted, causing them immense pain. He did this to remind them of their duty, and so they'd return to work. I think this scene could also easily represent man's control over other men, and how easily we'll dehumanize one another and treat each other like animals, as long as it means we don't have to suffer that same fate. And for some out there, it feels good having power over people, especially when there's those that have power over you. You might not have complete control over your life, but as long as I can control these other little shits, that makes me feel good. It's telling that these two large creatures fight each other instead of turning their anger towards the man that is actually causing their suffering, much like how in our everyday lives we're often distracted by petty grievances and take our anger out on each other rather than focusing on the larger picture. This same deformed man then feeds his strange bespectacled pets mealworms. The music changes to a light-hearted tune as we descend into a brightly colored world of alien plants. The tone of the movie changes completely. This tiny world, this little box, belongs to these strange bespectacled creatures. Their entire existence is in this small world of bright, happy colors. They remain completely oblivious that they're held captive here. This brings us to question, does it really matter that they're being held captive in the first place, as long as they're content? Surely they would fare better here than outside of their cage. Maybe their lack of freedom is a blessing in disguise. Would these creatures want to leave if they were told the truth? The answer might surprise you. Sometimes captivity is preferred by the captives if all their needs are being met. When people are content in their lives, they'll do mostly anything to preserve that comfort, even if it means ignoring the brutality and destruction of the outside world. But then the scene continues. The deformed man then flips a switch, which opens a door to this cage, and and lets in a spider. The spider is hungry and needs to feed. These bespectacled creatures are the spider's food. One of these creatures turns on its friend so that it may survive. The spider pulls the creature's friend away to be eaten. Other bugs in this same cage barely notice this happen as they're playing cards. No big deal, it's a regular occurrence, right? And it's not me suffering today, so who gives a shit? The deformed man giggles with delight as the creature is carried away. There are many videos online of people using nature's circle of life for entertainment or amusement, feeding caged animals and watching as their prey are consumed, finding some sick, morbid curiosity and joy in it. In doing this, we're subconsciously taking on the form of a god, standing over these creatures fighting for survival in cages of our own design. They, both the predator and the prey, both exist as prisoners within our cage. We hold ultimate power over both of their fates. It's almost an act of defiance to our own existence, to our dreaded mortality, to our gods. If you're an agnostic or an atheist, you don't know why we're here. We don't know our ultimate purpose. We don't know why life is a thing. We don't know why the universe exists. It just does. We don't know why the Earth exists. It just does. The Earth, in a sense, is one giant cage. But of course, it's so big, it doesn't feel like a cage. The creatures that we put in these cages don't suffer the same existential predicament. They just are. Perhaps it's a form of envy when we do this. Some of us wish that we were as oblivious to our existence as these creatures are. Obtaining power over them gives us a sense of purpose and makes us feel like, if only for a moment, a lesser version of the gods that we've created to give our lives meaning. In a less literal sense, we can also draw parallels between this scene and our everyday lives. While most of us today aren't being dragged away for slaughter, the cages in which we exist are still ever present, and they're hardly ever just cages. Each of us are victims to some form of puppetry. We're influenced every day by corporations to perform certain tasks. Our attention is modern currency, and the 1% will do anything to attain it, mostly without us ever realizing it's happening.
Dude. Wow. That actually, yes. It is amazing because while I was going through treatment and cancer and all that, and even after I felt like I was caged in the house because I couldn't go out, I couldn't do things, because I was very weak, but yet still, even though I know I couldn't go out, I couldn't do things, I still felt caged and I wanted to. So I know that feeling of being caged. And even if you were to go to a bigger thought, like your job, you reach that plateau, that ceiling that everybody talks about. You reach that, dude, now you're caged until you move on. You'll feel that. You may be like, yeah, I reached the ceiling, here I am, I'm at the top of my position. Well, after a while, you want to go higher, and then you realize you can't at that given moment, so then you feel caged. I mean, that it hits home, dude. This whole thing does. It hits home.
I just said could be a little bit of a reach, but I still think it's related. The deformed man looks through a telescope, and we get a glimpse of a woman pouring some form of liquid over the backside of a second woman who's nude. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what this is. I tried doing some research, and I found nothing. If anybody wants to help me with this particular part in the movie, just comment it down below. That would be cool. He peers through the telescope again, and witnesses a mushroom cloud from an immense explosion in the distance. In the next scene, the witch doctor enters the same room where the deformed man resides. The witch doctor still has the crying baby slug. It places the baby slug into a processor, activates it so it crushes the baby and turns it into a jelly. This machine then sends the jelly through a tube into a cylindrical device that transforms it into a form of liquid metal and squirts it out into a basin. It's then heated up and poured into a mold, where it's then lifted and placed into a mortar and ground into a fine sparkling dust. The witch doctor takes the dust and flings it into a porthole of bright light. A purple entity forms in this window, and then we see what appears to be an eye that stares back at the witch doctor before exploding. A white light appears, and then a second explosion of multicolored dust can be seen, almost mimicking the death of a star or some other cosmic event. We watch as planets align, a random UFO pops out of nowhere, because, aliens exist, because they do. The monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey is hurled into a planet. This entire sequence is so beautiful. It's honestly difficult to describe. It's like they tried to envision what the death and rebirth of the universe would look like. We see this floating purple color, we watch as liquid heats up and boils, we see what appears to be cells forming, and then blood and water, and other miscellaneous chaotic visuals. We see some fish, and then many human babies. Time skips forward thousands of years. Man-made towers are erected until a modern city stands illuminated by the red sun. Much like the same sun that illuminated the Tower of Babylon in the beginning of the movie. A bomb very similar to those that the alchemist's assassins used is detonated by some rebels of an ongoing war, and the city is destroyed. Man is doomed to repeat his mistakes forever. Chaos reigns. A black hole presents itself, with 2001-like monoliths flying from its center. What does this mean? Well, let me continue. In order to figure out what this represents, we need look no further than a quote from Stanley Kubrick himself. For those that don't know, Stanley Kubrick is the very talented director that made 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of the best and most influential sci-fi films ever made. And in that movie, there's this alien black monolith type thing. And in this quote, Stanley Kubrick kind of explains what it is. From the very outset of work on the film, we all discussed means of photographically depicting an extraterrestrial creature in a manner that would be as mind-boggling as the being itself. It soon became apparent that you cannot imagine the unimaginable. All you can do is try to represent it in an artistic manner that will convey something of its quality. That's why we settled on the black monolith, which is, of course, in itself something of a Jungian archetype, and also a pretty fair example of minimal art. In order to understand his quote, we need to decipher and expand on what he means by Jungian archetype. The philosopher Carl Jung believed that the human consciousness was made up of three things: the ego, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. We want to focus on the latter of these three. Jung believed that there existed specific symbols shared by a collective human unconscious. Where did these symbols originate? 2001 and Mad God postulate that this black monolith exists as a sort of symbol to represent the entirety of man's unconscious mind. We're all connected by a force, and we will never know why that force exists. There's this intangible web that connects what we would describe as our souls or spirits. These monoliths represent that force, an unknowable alien force that's in some way responsible for the creation of everything we know. You know, that's the baby scene from the end of 2001. We then see a figure with large eyes in a red glass container staring back at us. Could this possibly echo the baby scene from the end of 2001? The many clocks in the deformed man's office tick forever on. For what is a clock if not a countdown to the inevitable? A gentle reminder that our time here is temporary. Time consumes all, despite our countless attempts to combat it. The movie ends with the alchemist sending another assassin down in an attempt to alter his fate, a mission that he will repeat perpetually unto eternity and never accomplish. So what the hell happened in this movie? To simplify it in a way that doesn't delve into symbolism or anything of that nature, this was my interpretation. The world is suffering the wrath of God in all its forms. The alchemist is attempting to change this by sending assassins on a false pretense mission to destroy a factory. They're really being sent down to be operated on. The alchemist has implanted them with an alien creature that, when processed in the correct way, might hold the power to alter humanity's course from that of damnation. This magical dust that results in this process ends up creating an entirely new universe, and in this universe, instead of God's wrath leading man to perdition, it's simply man that brings about his own ruin. The alchemist is doomed to fail forever, because it's in man's nature to fail. The alchemist had achieved absolute power over man, so where else to go but try and conquer the gods? Or better yet, try to become one himself. Before I end this video, I would like to add that the music in this movie is amazing. All the original music was composed by Dan Wool, and in a movie like this that's almost entirely devoid of dialogue, the music is used as one of the main components to bring this movie to life, and it does so perfectly. The sound department also knocked it out of the park. Every little action in this movie has a very strong sound to accompany it, which makes the experience that much better. Of course, the visual effects and art department, holy shit. In that department, it really doesn't get much better than this. Mad God is a true modern masterpiece, one of the best movies of our time, and one that should be celebrated for years to come. Hats off to Phil Tippett and his team, you guys did amazing.
Man, you know, I thought this was the actual show, Mad God. I thought so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this small so you guys can see Elvis the Alien. I'm going to subscribe to him, man. He did a knockout job of this, I swear. That was freaking awesome. I want to see it. I want to see the show. I do. I got to find it to see if I can find the movie. I do. I want to see it. So, what do you guys think? I mean, I think the whole representation of that movie is just wow. I mean, for a person to be able to convey a message that others can see and almost feel without being told what it is, can feel what he was trying to show you because you can relate to it, because it makes sense, because maybe that's how you see it. Maybe that's how you feel it. I mean, it is just, back when I used to make films, I would only dream to be able to do that. Be able to convey a message good enough for somebody to relate to it or feel for it. I mean, I've done a couple, nothing big, nothing that has won any awards or even have gone really past my website. I think I did a film fest, if I remember. I may have gotten in it. I don't think I won it. I think it was just shown. They viewed it. I can't remember. And I owned a production company, and we ended up doing a movie, The House of the Demon. And I started my acting career and then met with George Ortiz, which was the director of The House of the Demon. And he also does, I don't know if he still does it, but he did back then. I mean, you're talking years ago. San Antonio Horror Film Fest. He was a die-hard horror fan. I mean, George was awesome. He knew his horror. And the movie, oh man, it took us like a year and a half to do. And I auditioned for a part and got it, and then his film crew kind of ditched him. I mean, ran off and was just like, nope. So I had this bright idea that, hey, you know what? We'll film it. I mean, shit, I've watched I don't know how many movies. You know, my mom and my stepdad, I told them this is what we're doing, and they're like, bet, let's do this. And we did it. And out of nowhere, we filmed a movie. And it's not the best movie. It's not, you know, theater worthy. But it's our creation. It's what we did together. And I love it. I do. The experience, the lessons we learned, the people we met. I mean, George will always, I remember him. I love him. He's a great man. He is. And I hope he thinks the same way of me. I really do. But I highly enjoyed working with him and making the movie. Well then, you know, we went on and I started taking photos for a magazine and, you know, started doing music videos and then started doing my own stuff. And then, you know, then that stopped. And then I went to the police academy and became a cop. But, dude, I still want to do the movie stuff. I still like doing it. I still have all the editing programs. I still keep on telling myself, yeah, I'm going to do it. But, no. In reality, I probably could. I still got the cameras. I still got all the gear. But, no. I don't think I could do it again. I mean, a full-fledged movie. But, you know what? At least I could say I made a movie and it's on Amazon and all that. You know, I mean, I hold that dear to my heart. I do. So, I mean, it's an experience. If you've never done it, like to take on something so big and not know any part about it. And I'm just going off of all the movies that I've, auditioned for and all the projects as a part of, and watching the cameraman and the director and the sound and all that, and just mimicking those to make the movie. I mean, it was fun, and I highly enjoyed it. I did. And I know my mother did, and I know my father did, and I know George did too. I mean, it was cool. I highly enjoyed it. I did. So that was the Mad God, the what he thought it was, his review, and I think Elvis the Alien nailed it, dude. I mean, how he sees it is how I kind of feel about it. I mean, I have my own thoughts on what those scenes represented, but you know what? Everything through there, I could see that point. I could see what he's saying and how he sees it and how it's represented to him. Just because mine is not the same way, but I could see his thought process on it. And he nailed it. He did. And like I said, I'm going to try to find the whole movie, Mad God, so that we can sit there and watch it and see for ourselves and see every scene to its entirety, so that maybe you see something he doesn't, or you could relate to something that he didn't mention, or you could just totally say, screw it, man, this thing sucks, and walk on. Or you could think it's the coolest shit in the world to try to get the DVD and get to the director and try to, do what you got to do, reach out to him. I mean, that'd be the coolest thing. I think as a director, I would love to get a letter from a person who has seen something I created and how they feel, and tell me how it makes them feel, good or bad. See, that's another thing, good or bad. You can't accept the good without accepting the bad. You can't have the good without having the bad. I've been watching these creators, the TikTok creators and the people who do stuff like this, reviews and deep dives on things, and these guys are great, dude. I swear to God, these channels that I watch and these creators that I watch, God, they're awesome. They are. Maybe I'm a person who sees things different. Maybe to you I'm completely off, but to me, these guys fucking nail it every time, dude. I love watching them. I do. I wish I could be like that. But these other creators that I see, these big guys that are getting, the max views, and they're TikTok famous, and, everybody signs up. Which, please subscribe and like, please, please, please. And they do this. And, dude, these guys that are the creators, they're creators, the content creators. They give you content to watch, and you get hooked on it. And you love it, and you wait for it, and everything. And you tell them everything you want. Man, I love you, dude. You're the best. Holy shit, keep it up. Oh my God. And you can see it lights up. They light up like fucking Christmas trees. I would. Shit, somebody sends me a chat that says, hi, my day's made. I'm like, holy shit, somebody wants to talk to me. And I could only imagine if I had, hundreds of thousands of subscribers that are waiting to watch what I put out there and wanting to talk to me, and we engage in everything. I could only imagine what that feels like to have that. I would go ballistic because I don't have that. So I can't tell you what it feels like to have that. I could only tell you what it feels like for me to think of having that. Is my dream to be able to make content and that's it, and make a living and make millions of dollars, never have to work again? No. If I don't work or get outside and do something, I will literally wither up and die. I will. Okay? I will try to do something. If it's it's not police work, I will try. I'll be a Walmart greeter. Okay? I have to do something. Would it be cool to make money doing this? Yeah. I ain't gonna fucking lie. I'm not. And whoever starts doing this would love to make money doing it if they can. Of course. Make money doing what you love? Come on. Dude. You don't even need to ask. But I'm getting off topic. The creators, they get their cool little text and their notions, which, you know, like I said, I would die for. They get hundreds of thousands. They're even getting stuff shipped to their house, presents, letters, artwork. Which I would love, by the way. Send me stuff. I want to hear from you. But they're getting these things, and then there's the bad comments, the bad things, and the bullying, and the haters. They get them, and then it just ruins their life. You can see they're just, stop texting me, stop bullying me, stop making fun of me, stop it. You can see it. And then they shut off their comments. One of them was like, oh, I'm shutting off my comments, and, you know, I'm not going to put it on unless you guys are good. Unless you guys start acting good and playing fair. Then I'll turn on my comments. Like, it's, like, that's what they were there for, was just the comments, you know? And some of them are. Don't get me wrong. Some of them are. But I don't know if it's the cop in me, if it's the way I look at things now from being a cop. I mean, here in Texas, police, you cannot get offended by nothing. As an officer, you cannot get offended. Nothing could offend you. You are unoffendable, if that's even a fucking word. So, I guess the comments wouldn't mean shit to me. It would just be a comment. You know, good or bad. I could see how a bad comment can ruin someone's day, yes. I could see the bullying coming on, because after a while it probably gets to you. It probably does. I'm not saying it doesn't. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't get to me. I'm not untouchable. I'm not. Because after a while, it just does get to you. Things just get to you. I get it. But you gotta have that. You gotta have the good. You gotta have the bad. Just flush it out. Work through it. You know, I'm not in that position, nor can I ever tell you what it feels like. And if I do get into that position, I'll tell you what it feels like. But until then, I can't. So, I just, you know, I just feel that's relevant in some way. I don't know. I'm just saying. So, that was Mad God, and that was the alien, how he felt it was, and it was beautiful. Loved it. And I guess here, maybe later on today, tonight, if I can get to it, I'll jump on again and we'll watch another thing from my Watch Later playlist and go through it. Guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for even taking a second to see this. And maybe it opened your eyes to something and you're going to check it out. Definitely check out Elvis the Alien. He's pretty cool. Okay? And in the great spirit of all the other content creators, please like and subscribe. Please. Alright, guys. I shall talk to you guys later. And until then, be safe.